Supplementary questions clear. We'll now move to question time, and I call Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. The Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations said recently in Gladstone, people will be seeing in their bank accounts what the change of government means. People will be seeing in their bank accounts a wage increase. Can the Minister guarantee that there will always be real wage increases, real wage growth under an Albanese Labor government?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I'm going to get that right this question time. And I thank the Shadow Minister for Finance on your position, and thank you for the question. It is somewhat surprising that I would get a question like this early on from those opposite who, let's not forget, as a deliberate design feature of their economic architecture was to ensure low wages or no wage growth for a decade. And I think that since we've come to government, we have been clear that getting wages moving is part of our economic plan. We have these challenging set of circumstances where the price of everything is going up and people's wages have been going back for the last decade, essentially under your government's economic architecture.
Order.
So we have a job to do. There is no doubt about that. And getting wages moving is a key part of our economic plan, just as it is dealing with the decade of wasted opportunities and wrong priorities on a failure to land an energy policy which is placing upward pressure on bills that people are feeling in their pocket. So yes, we have provided a submission to the minimum wage case. That has handed down a wage outcome for those on the minimum wage. We have supported that, something that never featured in part of your government when you were in government, your submissions to the Fair Work Commission, not once. In fact, you had a whole section on the importance of low-paid workers in the economy. That's how far you went. So we are absolutely determined to get wages moving. I think if you listen to the media reports and the questions of the Treasurer, Madam President, it's very difficult to answer when you're getting yelled at.
Resume your seat, please. No, she hasn't finished her answer. I've sat the minister down because I'm having difficulty hearing her answer. Please continue, Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much. Getting wages moving to assist households to deal with the increasing cost of living, particularly the inflation challenge that we're dealing with.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Hume, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. So, given the minister has refused to guarantee real wages growth, and the Treasurer's economic update predicting that real wages are in fact falling, does the minister stand by the previous statement of the Minister for Employment and Workplace and Relations that it's not a recovery if people's wages are effectively going backwards?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. And we have continue on. We have inherited a very challenging set of economic challenges from those opposite as a result of 9 years of wasted opportunities and wrong priorities, and a former government that was determined to make sure that people's wages went backwards. We have come in dealing with higher than expected inflation, and we are determined to get wages moving by submissions to the Fair Work case, by supporting those wages claims like aged care workers currently before the Fair Work Commission. These are the things that a government can do. It can help to shape the policies that deliver the wage outcomes for people, and we do want them to get moving, but we are facing a—
Resume your seat. Thank you, Minister. Senator Birmingham, please. Senator Birmingham, you stand and then I give you the call and then you start. You started to speak as you were rising, so please start now.
Sorry, President, I was trying to be efficient in the use of time. President, point of order, direct relevance. The minister in relation to this supplementary question has been asked very clearly about a quote attributed to one of her ministerial colleagues and whether she stands by that quote. Now, she has now, for some 49 seconds, talked around and about the broad topic, but has not come directly to the quote.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. In the supplementary question, there were references to other ministers and a real wage increase guarantee. I believe that the minister is being relevant, but I will continue to listen carefully. Please continue, Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. I can assure the Senate that every single minister in an Albanese Labor government is focused on ensuring that we ease the cost of living on households, that we get wages moving, and that we deal with 9 years of...
Senator Hume, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. So the Treasurer recently said that there is no credible economic forecaster in Australia right now who thinks that wages growth is going to keep up with inflation. Does the minister agree with the Treasurer that the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations isn't a credible source when it comes to wages? And isn't it true that an Albanese government has already broken its promise on real wages growth?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. And I honestly cannot believe that the gall of those opposite to talk about real wage growth when it was a deliberate design feature of your economic architecture was to suppress wages. The reason we're in the position where we haven't had real wage growth is because you, when in government, were determined to put pressure on wages growth and make sure there wasn't any. Every minister in this government is focused on making sure Australians get more money in their pocket, whether it be childcare, whether it be through reducing energy prices, whether it be through getting wages growing, whether it be training for the jobs of the future, the high-skilled jobs of the future. These are the areas where government can make a difference. We've hit the ground running. We're doing the work that you lot didn't do for the past 9 years.
Thank you, Minister. I'll now move to Senator Nampijinka-Price. Oh, beg your pardon, Senator, my error. Senator Stewart.
President, my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Can the Minister outline the Albanese government's plans for a voice to Parliament?
Minister Wong.
I thank Senator Stewart for, her first question, is that right? And congratulate her again and welcome her to the Senate. Over the weekend, the Prime Minister gave the most significant speech on Indigenous affairs by an Australian Prime Minister since the national apology to the stolen generations. He outlined the government's plan to implement the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. And specifically, he laid out plans to enshrine a voice to Parliament in the Constitution, proposing a referendum question for consultation. Do you support an alteration of the Constitution that establishes an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice? It's a straightforward proposition. It's a simple principle, a question from the heart. Our starting point is a recommendation to add 3 sentences to the Constitution in recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as the first peoples of this country. 1. There shall be a body to be called the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. 2. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice may make representations to Parliament and the Executive Government on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And 3, the Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, have powers to make laws with respect to the composition, functions, powers and procedures of the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander voice. We are seeking momentous change together, but it is also a very simple one, because at its heart it's about consulting our First Nations brothers and sisters, our First Nations peoples, about consulting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples on the decisions that affect them. It is nothing more and nothing less. And as the Prime Minister said, it is simple courtesy and common decency.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Stewart, your first supplementary.
Can the Minister please explain how a voice to Parliament can support practical outcomes and closing the gap?
Minister Wong.
I thank the Senator for her supplementary question. The voice will be an unflinching source of advice and of accountability. It's not a third chamber, it's not a rolling veto, it's not a blank cheque. It's a body with the perspective and power and platform to tell the government and the Parliament the truth about what is working and what is not, to tell the truth with clarity and with conviction. So it's not an either-or proposition. We can and must do both. It won't delay our plan to train 500 new Aboriginal healthcare workers or stand in the way of our new investments in life-saving kidney dialysis treatment. It won't slow us from upgrading roads or expanding education and economic opportunities. On the contrary, recognition and a voice will accelerate progress because the accountability of the voice will help us get on track to close the gap.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Stewart, second supplementary.
Can the minister explain to the Senate the Uluru Statement from the Heart process leading to the voice to Parliament?
Minister Wong.
I thank Senator Stewart for her supplementary. There are now more First Nations parliamentarians, including the good senator, than ever before, and that does make an enormous difference. But elections mean parliamentarians come and go. And the voice will exist and endure outside of the ups and downs of election cycles. And let's recall that the Statement from the Heart is the outcome of the most significant consultation process, of First Nation peoples Australia has ever seen. It builds on the work of the expert panel on constitutional recognition of Indigenous Australians and the 16-member Referendum Council. There had been many years of consultation by the time the Council travelled to 12 different locations around Australia and met with over 1,200 Indigenous representatives. And whilst I respect that there are differences of views, including this place, I do urge senators to recognise and respect the years of concerted effort that has got us this far.
Senator Nampijinpa Price.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister, representing the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator Gallagher. Will the government inform Australians of its plan for who will serve on the proposed Indigenous voice and how they will be selected prior to asking Australians to amend the Constitution?
Thank you, Senator. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. And I can certainly start to provide an answer, but if there is more information that I can provide to Senator, I will following question time. I think the idea that the Prime Minister outlined on the weekend is for the consultations to commence on a whole range of detail about progressing this to the referendum stage. And I think the Prime Minister was very clear on the weekend that he didn't want to determine arrangements without consultations with First Nations people. But the regional voice arrangements will be put in place, and they will provide a nationally consistent system for First Nations people and government to work in partnership at the regional level. And the regional voice arrangements will complement a First Nations voice at the national level. Obviously, there will be consultations across the board, not just with First Nations communities, but also with state and territory governments. But if I can provide further information for the Senator, I will do following question time.
First supplementary, Senator Nampijinpa Price.
Thank you, President. What process has the government put in place for Australians, including Indigenous Australians, to provide feedback about the proposed question and approach to the voice?
Thank you, Senator. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. My understanding is that there has been deep consultation with a whole range of stakeholders around the development of the advice that has informed the speech the Prime Minister gave on the weekend. Obviously, there's been the work that previous parliaments have done, but also the work that Dr Karma and Dr Langton have done, which has helped inform the position that the Prime Minister outlined on the weekend. But, and I think the Prime Minister has been clear about this, that there needs to be a lot more discussion and consultation and listening from government as we proceed to the next stages of the referendum process, and that will be done. This is being done in the spirit of cooperation, collaboration and goodwill. And
thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Nampijinpa Price, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Prior to the vote on the Voice and noting the government is fast-tracking abolishing the cashless debit card, will the government outline its alternative plans for tackling alcoholism, drug addiction, problem gambling, violent assaults and sexual abuse in Indigenous communities?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, and I thank President. I thank the senator for the question. I think the outline that the Prime Minister gave on the weekend was that we want to consult further, listen, get the details right. No, I mean, that is the approach the government will take, whether you guys like it or not. In relation to the second part of the question, we are working with the Northern Territory government in relation to specific supports that need to be on the ground in the Northern Territory. But obviously there are a whole range of programs that are funded from the Commonwealth in partnership with the states and territories to support First Nations communities across the board, whether that be in health, social supports, housing, education, and those, of course, will continue, but with greater purpose from this government than from previous arrangements that have been put in place, where we seek to collaborate, to cooperate, and to listen to First Nations communities.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Thorpe.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister. How does your proposed constitutionally enshrined Indigenous voice to Parliament affect First Nations people's sovereignty in this country?
Minister Wong.
Well, thank you, Senator Thorpe, for the question. I think the government's made clear that we will look to implement in full the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which, as you know, goes to voice, treaty and truth. I understand that you personally have a different view about the order of those achievements or those objectives. They're not, from our perspective, given the level of consultation with First Nations communities that led to or that grounded the Uluru Statement from the Heart, we are proceeding respectfully in accordance with that statement. And I would make this point, and it picks up really what Senator Price asked my colleague, Senator Gallagher. I appreciate that this is a big change for many people, and I appreciate that there are those who wish to ask questions of detail. Sometimes, even if those questions were answered, they would not change their position. I respect that. But
Senator Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Thorpe.
Just a point of order, just going off track. So, is it? Relevance. My question was, how does going into the Constitution affect First Peoples' sovereignty in this country? That's all.
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. I believe the minister is being relevant. Minister Wong, please continue.
As I understand what has been put to us by the representatives of First Nations peoples, as outlined in the Uluru Statement from the Heart, is that they are seeking that we respond first to the voice before moving to treaty and truth. I would make the point that the enshrinement of a voice is both symbolic, but it is also pragmatic. It's symbolic because it will include Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the founding document of our country. It is pragmatic, given that there is no systematic process for First Nations peoples to provide advice to Parliament.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Thorpe, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. How does the Prime Minister's proposal for a referendum honour the principles of free, prior and informed consent as defined in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which Labor supported in the last Parliament?
Minister Wong.
What's the question? I'm sorry, I might have misheard, but I couldn't actually hear the question in that.
Okay. Senator Thorpe, wait for the call. Minister Wong, I'll ask the senator to repeat her question if the clocks could be held. Thank you, Minister Thorpe. Senator Thorpe.
Minister will do. How does the Prime Minister's proposal for a referendum honour the principles of free, prior and informed consent as defined in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which Labor supported in the last parliament?
Minister Wong.
The Prime Minister is seeking to implement not only an election commitment, but a call from First Nations peoples for this action. So when you talk about consent, my view, what I'd put to you, Senator, through you, President, is that the consent is a representative group which has come together. I appreciate you may not agree with it, but people from across this country, First Nations peoples, have come together and they have asked for this. They've put out their... I don't know if Senator Thorpe and Senator Price wish to... Do you want me to continue or do you want to...
No. Senator McKenzie, interjections are disorderly. Minister, please continue.
My point is this. I appreciate that you have a difference of views, but we are responding to, and Senator Dodson, I'm sure, could speak with much greater eloquence than I, the call from First Nations peoples across this country as exemplified
Minister
and
Wong,
as captured...
please resume your seat. Senator Thorpe.
Point of order on relevance. As the only sitting member in this place that was at Uluru, it was no consensus, there was no consent.
Senator
I was
Thorpe,
there.
Please resume your seat. The minister is being relevant to the question that you asked. Minister Wong, please continue.
Well, this is a call that we wish to respond to.
Senator Thorpe, second supplementary.
Will you legislate for a Makarrata Commission before any referendum? So we want a treaty before the referendum. Will you legislate it before the referendum?
Minister Wong.
If I can, I know that Ms Burney and the attorney have had some consultations on this, and I think the phrase co-designing was used, but if I can get further information about the timing of that, I will do so. I'd make the point that we are seeking to progress this reform in the priority that has been identified by First Nations peoples. As I said, I appreciate that isn't your view, but is the view of the great many who came together to form the Uluru Statement from the Heart, who are also democratic representatives in their own right, of their peoples, and we are responding to that. But if I can get further information about the process of design.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Your time has expired, and I would ask you to address your answers to questions to the chair. Senator Sterle.
Thanks, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government, Senator Watt. Could the Minister outline the findings of the ANAO's report into the Building Better Regions Fund?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. And Senator Sterle, as a matter of fact, I can. And I know this is something that you followed very closely in your role as the chair of ARAT, the committee we know affectionately as ARAT in this place. Well, I don't know about you, Senator Sterle, but I thought that the election defeat that we saw recently of the former coalition government meant that once and for all the coalition's rorts had ended. The scandals, the rorts, the media reports, finally we might be making it clear of that. But sadly, these reports have not even ended with the defeat of this government. Because last week, the Australian National Audit Office released yet another scathing report into the former government's management of the $1.15 billion Building Better Regions Fund. This report confirmed what we already knew about the former government. It was the latest rort from a government notorious for rorts. Sports rorts, car park rorts, stacking the AAT.
Resume your seat, and I would ask you to look to me when you're answering questions so that you can see that I'm asking you to sit down. Senator Rennick.
Point of order, Chair. The Auditor-General is a partisan hack whose credibility was
Senator
trashed in the Leppington Triangle.
Rennick, resume your seat. Senator Rennick, resume your seat. There is no point of order. Minister Wong.
Withdraw that.
Minister Wong, I've given you the call.
Point of order.
Yes, I've given you the call.
Oh, sorry, President, I didn't hear well. Obviously, the Auditor-General can't defend themselves. The point of order is that I'd ask that you ensure the Auditor-General is advised of what has just been said, in order that the Auditor-General can avail themselves of the protections which exist under Hansard.
Thank you, Minister Wong. I'm not sure that it is my job to advise outside bodies, but I'll seek the advice of the clerk, and if it is, I will do so. Senator Watt, please continue your comments.
Thank you, President. Well, I think Senator Rennick's interjection indicates exactly why the former government cared so little about accountability, if that's the way in which they regarded the high office of Auditor-General of this country.
Senator Rennick.
Now, what the report released last week showed is that communities in regional Australia have been dudded as the coalition actively ignored grant guidelines for their own political purposes in the largest open and competitive grants program available for regional projects. Regional communities with projects assessed as deserving were dumped
Senator
to accommodate
McGrath.
the political needs of a desperate, failing government
Senator
in its
Davey.
final hours. Now, we always said in the run-up to the election that the coalition spent public money like
Senator
it was
Watt,
Liberal National Party money.
Please resume your seat. I would ask senators to be quiet when the minister's answering the question, because I need to hear the answers, as well as other senators in this place. Senator Watt, please continue.
Thank you, President. As I say, we said repeatedly that the coalition spent public money like it was Liberal and National Party money, and here is yet more proof in this fund. Regional Australia deserves better, taxpayers deserve better,
Senator Watt.
and they'll get it from this government.
Your time has expired. Senator Sterle, first supplementary.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. My lord, what did the ANO report find regarding panel composition and record-keeping of decisions, Minister?
Minister Watt.
Did they have a big...
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Well, one of the worst aspects of the report tabled last week was what it had to say about ministerial panel composition and record-keeping of decisions. I mean, that presumes that there was record-keeping of decisions, which of course there was not. Instead of transparent, accountable decision-making, ministerial decisions were shrouded in secrecy. The ministerial panel made decisions on the basis of choose-your-own-adventure criteria, a non-exhaustive list of other factors that were not fully explained to those applying for grants. Now, I know that the Nationals have again said this was all about supporting the regions.
Senator McGrath.
But of course what happened with this program was that some regional areas were dumped to favour certain other regional areas. Would they maybe have been regional areas that had the right colour code next to them in a spreadsheet? We all know that's how the Nationals went about decision-making. And who benefited most from this? The Nationals. The Nationals benefited the most as proper process was actively ignored. Those seats got $104 million more than if the proper process had been followed.
The time has expired. Senator Sterle, second supplementary.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Oh, goodness me.
Order. Senator Sterle, resume your seat. I'll wait for quiet before I call Senator Sterle again. Senator Mackenzie. Senator Sterle.
Oh, with pleasure. Thank you, Madam President. Now, Minister, are you aware of any other programs where similar concerns to those identified by the ANAO have been raised?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. And again, Senator Sterle, as a matter of fact, I do. Because all you need to do is look at year after year of the record of the former government to find rort after rort after rort after rort.
Minister Watt.
Now, let's just start.
Resume your seat. I'm waiting for quiet until I ask the minister to again resume his remarks. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. I can understand why Senator Mackenzie, of all people, gets a bit toey when we talk about rorts in this chamber. But because of course we have sports rorts, where almost half the projects that were funded were actually ineligible for funding until they had the colour-coded spreadsheet that emerged out of Senator Mackenzie's office. We've got the car park rorts, $660 million of rorts. which the former government used simply to target their own marginal seats. And while those opposite love to name-check regional communities, when it comes to funding them, the Auditor-General found that 27% of regional grants awarded by the Commonwealth between 2018 and 2021 actually went to recipients from major cities. Remember the regional pool that just happened to be in North Sydney? That's how much they care about regions. They will rule it till they die, and that's why they're out of government.
Your time has expired. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to Senator Gallagher, representing the Minister for Health. Tavistock Gender Clinic in the UK, a leading provider of gender dysphoria services, will close in 2023. Britain's National Health Service asked Dr Hilary Cass, past President of the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health, to review the treatment of children with gender dysphoria. The Cass review found Tavistock Gender Clinic has failed vulnerable children, and it recommended closing Tavistock. Finland, France and Sweden have taken the same decision for their gender clinics. Here in Australia, Melbourne's Royal Children's Hospital has many linkages with Tavistock. Minister, will you review Australia's gender clinics to ensure these clinics are not causing the same harm to vulnerable children that the Cass review found at Tavistock?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. As the Minister representing the Minister for Health, if there are further information I can provide after question time, I would do so. I would say that the Royal Children's Hospital has an excellent reputation in paediatric care in Australia, staffed by world-renowned medical professionals providing first-rate care to younger citizens in the state, but also around the country. I don't have close knowledge of the services they would provide to children with gender dysphoria, but I have no doubt that they have the professional standards and the professional skills that are required to provide those young people and their families with first-level advice and health care. We have no information that's available to the government, to my knowledge, that we should see it any differently to that. That is, that where there are children that require health services, that they access it through a children's hospital, that those services are accredited, there's professional standards in place, there's appropriate ethics and various advisory bodies that inform the delivery of those services, and if there are concerns around them, that they are dealt with through the appropriate channels, not necessarily by politicians who have particular views about certain things, but actually deal with them as through the delivery of health services, as we do so in a whole range of other areas of paediatric care.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
Thank you. So you can't say whether you will review. Evidence shows that the use of puberty blockers sterilises children, and the impact on brain development is unknown. The Royal Children's Hospital is currently studying the impact of puberty blockers on children. We are literally offering a treatment we do not know is safe. Minister, when will the Australian government intervene and demand the closure of all gender clinics in Australia until gender treatment in children is proven to be safe, if ever?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. And I think the government has no intention to intervene and ban particular services, health services, that are supporting families and supporting children to access the type of care that they need for their individual situation. If there is further information I can provide, and I would say as a former health minister, you know, health services in this country, and we are very fortunate, are heavily regulated. The professionals who provide health services are heavily regulated. There are professional bodies in place. There are complaints mechanisms. There are a whole range of avenues. If there are concerns about any health service, that those would go through and be dealt with. They are not normally dealt with on the floor of a parliamentary chamber. You know, there are many families that need services. The Australian government is about providing health services, not taking them away.
Minister, the time has expired. Senator Roberts, second supplement.
Thank you. Minister, One Nation listens to people, and this is what we're hearing. So we speak up for constituents. Minister, a child who has not even reached puberty is incapable of knowing their own mind. Doctors and sometimes parents are taking these decisions on the child's behalf. Has the government considered the legal liability it is incurring for the government's part in this medical malpractice?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. Well, I don't agree that it's medical malpractice, nor do I agree with the proposition being put forward in the question that there are professionals and parents making decisions that are harmful to young people. Perhaps, Senator Roberts, it might be good for you to go and ask the health professionals that are providing these services how they provide them and how they support young people rather than just taking a particular view. I've always found that going in and asking questions and being open-minded about, not just necessarily taking one individual's view about it, but actually learning from the health professionals is useful. But I also think it's, saying it's medical malpractice, it goes too far for when you're looking at the vulnerability of the young people and children that are needing this kind of support through the health system. We should be very sensitive in how we deal with it, and as a government we're keen on making sure that we are able to provide health services to anyone who needs it, regardless of their circumstance.
The time has expired. Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Labor's Powering Australia plan says in black and white that it will cut power bills for families and businesses by $275 a year for homes by 2025 compared to today. Will the Minister representing the Treasurer guarantee that Australian families and businesses will see a cut to power bills of $275 a year by 2025 compared to today?
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Hughes for the question and again for leading with their chin on a matter around energy policy. The first question was on wages policy, the deliberate design feature of the economic architecture. The third one is on energy policy. How many was it? 22, didn't land one of them. 22 in 9 years, didn't land one of them. And what do we got now? An energy crisis. An energy crisis.
Senator Hughes.
Point of order, direct relevance. The question was around power bills being cut to families and businesses and a promise from Treasury that occurred, not around climate policy. This was about cutting bills.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Senator Hughes, resume your seat. Senator Hughes, I would ask Minister Wong. Senator Hughes. Senators, I would ask senators not to argue across the table, Minister Wong and Senator Hughes. The minister is being relevant. She is talking about the price of electricity. I will listen carefully and to the rest of... The senator stood up, Senator Hughes, and called a point of order. It is not for other senators to interject. I've made my decision. I've indicated I will listen carefully to the minute 31 seconds remaining, and if the minister isn't being relevant, I will direct her to the question. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. And the senator asked me whether the government would guarantee Australians lower power prices, and yes, we will. We will. We will put downward pressure. We will put downward pressure on energy prices. Absolutely, because we are doing exactly what we said we would do.
Senator Hughes, unless... Thank you, Senator Cash. I sat the minister down because I couldn't hear her answers. I will wait until there's quiet in the chamber before I call the minister again. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. We will lower power prices by implementing the Powering Australia plan, which we took to the election, which was our one and only plan compared to their 22 plans that they didn't implement in 9 years. And we will take the plan, and the absolute gall of the opposition when we know that the member for Hume, 2 days before the election was called, actually amended the industry code for electrical retailers on the 6th of April to delay the release of increases in the default market offer for New South Wales Queensland and South Australia. That's what your government did. 2 days before the election was called, you hid the increase of electricity prices. You hid it. Not only did you not try to sweep it under, you amended the industry code so that people didn't know before the election. That's what you did. Now, we will clean up this mess. We will implement Powering Australia.
Senator Hughes, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Perhaps Minister Gallagher might need to listen to the Australian Energy Regulator, because ever since the change of government, the Australian Energy Regulator has stated that increasing prices are likely to persist. Doesn't this show that the independent experts don't believe that Labor's policies will reduce power prices?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. And I would say that the 19.7% increase to the default market offer that the former government hid from the Australian people on the eve of an election, that is what you did.
Senator Hughes.
You didn't want people to know before the election that there was a 19.7% increase coming their way. Our policy will put downward pressure on electricity prices by getting more renewables into the grid. We will do what we said we will do. We will put downward pressure.
Resume your seat. I am struggling to hear the minister's answers. Please listen quietly, and interjections are disorderly, particularly those across the chamber. Minister, please continue.
Thank you, Madam President. We will implement the Powering Australia plan. It will put more renewables into the grid. 82% of Powering Australia plan will be from renewable energy. It will put downward pressure on energy bills, on electricity bills. You guys weren't doing it because you didn't believe in renewables, right? You couldn't sign up to it. That is what will help put downward pressure on
Minister. Senator Hughes, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Now, I appreciate there's been a guarantee, which is probably a word not in the talking points because no one else will say that word from Labor. But given the minister representing the Treasurer has actually really signed up with the rest of the Albanese government and its ministers to refuse to guarantee the $275 that was promised, and that's the number we're asking you to guarantee, isn't it true that the Albanese government has already broken its promise on power bill reduction?
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Your time has expired. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. From out of the mouths of those that continuously broke promises, we will guarantee that we will implement our Powering Australia plan, which will put downward pressure on electricity prices and assist households in a way that those opposite never did.
Minister, please resume your seat. The Minister, please continue now that the chamber's quiet.
Thank you, President. We stand by the modelling that underpinned our plan. We stand by our plan. We stand by the fact.
Take a breath.
We stand by the fact that we will be honest and upfront with the Australian people. We don't stand by the behaviour of those opposite, particularly the member for Hume, who, on the eve of an election being called, amended the industry code so that the Australian people didn't go to the election knowing that under your watch there'd been a 19.7% increase in electricity.
Senator Rice.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations. Your government has rushed the implementation of the previous Liberal government's new Workforce Australia program, providing only a 30-day suspension of mutual obligations that ended last week. You've now provided an additional 30-day suspension, but only for points-based activities. So people who can't attend their required appointments are still at risk of losing their payments, even when it's the broken system that has allocated them to service providers that are too far away or don't meet their accessibility needs. Will you commit to extending a pause on all mutual obligations for at least 90 days to ensure that no one loses their payments in this cost of living crisis?
Thank you, Senator Rice. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Rice, for the question. Obviously, as you'll be aware, I'm the representing minister, so I'll certainly do my best to give you the best answer I can. Something that happened when you were in government. I know it feels like a long time ago, but you'll get used to it. Senator Rice,
Minister
I'll
Watt,
certainly
resume your seat. I'm asking senators to be quiet. I can barely hear the minister's response to the question asked by Senator Rice. Minister, please continue.
Thanks, President. As I was saying, Senator Rice, I'll give you the best answer I can as the Repping Minister and provide you with further information to your questions. This government does accept and believe in the principle of mutual obligation, and that is something that Labor has supported for some time, not just in this government. But the way we go about doing that is by providing people who are unemployed with opportunities to enter the workforce, including by providing skills. Now, I've heard Minister Burke talk about the fact that under this program that your question is about, that we are not simply going to be requiring people to apply for jobs endlessly, but we are going to be providing people with opportunities to gain licences, to gain other skills in order to help them into work. So it is an alternative way of assisting people to get into work while requiring people who are in receipt of public funds to take up those opportunities to help find work. That is probably even more important at a time in Australia when we have such low unemployment. We do need to encourage everyone who's available to take up work for themselves, for their families and for the country. So we stand by this program. I stand by what Minister Burke said, and I'm happy to provide you with further detailed answers to your questions.
Thank you, Minister Watts. Senator Rice, first supplementary.
Despite promises of a clean slate, we've seen demerit points carried over from the old system, broken location services with people being directed to apply for jobs in areas they don't live in, inaccessibility for diverse communities, the dead naming of trans people in the system, and technical difficulty after technical difficulty. Minister, I know that you have promised to get back to us, but given the rollout has been an unmitigated disaster from day one, how can the government justify not extending the pause on mutual obligations until all the flaws have been wiped
Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Rice. We don't believe that at this point in time a pause is required to the system in the way that you suggest. We accept that this program isn't perfect and we intend to go about fixing it. The technical issues that you refer to are obviously things that we take seriously, and if there are any additional flaws in the system that you believe should be addressed, then I'd be more than happy to talk with you about that or to facilitate a meeting with the Minister.
Senator Rice, second supplementary.
Thanks, Minister. You say you take those issues seriously, yet right now I'm hearing from hundreds of people who are terrified of losing their income support payments now through no fault of their own, while food costs are up and many people are struggling to stretch a dollar far enough to survive. What do you say to those people?
Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Rice. What I say to those people is that they can have confidence that a Labor government under Anthony Albanese, Prime Minister, will stand with them in providing them with the payments that they require and in assisting them to find work. People can always have confidence in a Labor government to do that. That is something that is core to our beliefs. And I noticed that senators over that side are laughing at that proposition, which, you know, that's really something you'd need to ask yourself, Senator Van.
Senator Watt, Minister Watt, I'd ask you to direct your questions to the President and answer Senator Rice's question.
Thank you, President. So what I say to those people, as I say, is that they can have confidence that a Labor government will support them and that we will continue to make systems and programs better, improve them. We will not have a callous attitude towards people who are unemployed in the way that we saw repeatedly from the former government, and we will continue to make these programs better.
Senator Pratt.
And my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Aged Care, Senator Gallagher. Can the Minister please update the Senate on the government's response to the latest wave of COVID-19?
Thank you, Senator Pratt. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. And I thank Senator Pratt for the question and the opportunity to update the Senate on this very dangerous third Omicron wave that is prevalent through the Australian community. There are many Australians who are losing their life every day, Madam President. It's a very sobering reminder that we're still in the throes of this pandemic. Our clear message to Australians is you're not fully protected against COVID unless you have had your third or fourth dose. So for those people that are behind with their booster or eligible for their fourth dose, please go out there and get vaccinated. It will offer you individual protection, but also it will offer significant protection across the community, particularly for those that are vulnerable. We understand that this is a really tough time for many Australians who are fatigued after the past 2 years of this pandemic, but there are things we can all do to protect ourselves and help protect others. Firstly, go and get your third or fourth dose. If you're eligible for antivirals, please get them. Ask your doctor for them. If you can't socially distance, then wear a mask. If you're sick, stay at home, and also make sure that you stay up to date with the latest health advice. Australians know that the pandemic is not over and people should continue to act in accordance with the health advice. We have taken action to take the pressure off our hospitals and protect the health of Australians by extending the National Partnership on COVID-19 for the public hospital system. We've extended that support to hospitals, we've expanded access to fourth doses, we've expanded access to antiviral medicines for eligible recipients. We're continuing to get information out to families in the community and also strengthen protections in aged care, where COVID-19 is still such a significant issue.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Pratt, first supplement.
Thank you, President. Could the Minister update the Senate on the rate of uptake for the fourth vaccine dose?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Pratt for the supplementary. Since expanded eligibility has been made for the fourth dose, the number of people getting a fourth dose each week has tripled, from around 180,000 a week to more than 500,000 per week. Over 4 million people have had a fourth dose, which is up almost 1.5 million since we expanded the eligibility. More than 50,000 people got their third dose in the last week, but more than 5 million Australians have still not had theirs. Data shows that people are more likely to get severe illness, admitted to ICU or to die if they're not vaccinated or are overdue for a vaccination compared with those who've had their recommended vaccinations. For those aged 50 to 69, it's around 16 times more likely. Almost 3/4 of the Victorians who died this year after contracting COVID had not had their third dose.
Senator Pratt, second supplementary.
Thank you. Could the Minister update the Senate on the rates of vaccination for Australians in aged care?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Pratt. The Labor government has now made COVID-19 vaccination rates of aged care residents publicly available to drive the uptake of vaccinations as part of the government's winter plan. 78.8% of eligible residents in residential aged care facilities have received a fourth dose, up from around 50% on the 9th of June, when Minister Wells and Minister Butler wrote to providers to ask them to improve that rate. From today, the aggregated data for each residential aged care home will be available in both a list and interactive map, and this data will be updated weekly on the Department of Health and Aged Care website. The Labor government's winter plan to boost vaccination rates is already working. At the start of June, less than 50% of residents had a fourth COVID-19 dose, but vaccination rates have now increased to 78.8%.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health, Senator Gallagher. Why is the government creating uncertainty for people with serious medical conditions by refusing to confirm funding commitments? On the 1st of March 2022, now Minister Butler announced funding for Patient Pathways Telehealth Nurse Program from the 1st of July 2022 as an election commitment. He has now stated that funding for the program is still being finalised and will be delivered, if it is delivered, through the October budget, but is still subject to an independent evaluation. Why is the government now forcing the provider into a period of uncertainty?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll have to take that question on notice. I understand the bits around going through the budget process because those decisions are still underway, and as Senator Ruston from sitting on the ERC would note, that in lead up to a budget you do go through a process of assessing and approving and making decisions about what will be funded in the budget, and those decisions are currently before government. I am trying to be directly relevant.
Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry, Minister. Senator Ruston.
On a point of relevance, I was actually asking the minister in relation to a commitment that had been promised on the 1st of July and why it was being considered in the budget in October when it actually had been committed to start on the 1st of July.
Thank you, Senator. I'll draw the minister's attention to that part of the question. Minister Gallagher.
Well, someone's trying to help me. Thank you, President. If it is relating to a previously funded commitment from the government, the former government, we are also going through a process around that. But I will look. I think, in the interest of the chamber and giving accurate information, I'm not briefed on this matter, and I would bring this information back to the senator following question time.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ruston, first supplementary.
Why is the government creating certainty for young Australians facing mental health challenges by not honouring funding commitments? Young Australians living on Bribie Island were promised greater access to mental health services by the establishment of permanent official telehealth satellite services. Why is the government creating uncertainties for these vulnerable Australians by refusing to confirm this funding? And is it the intention of the government to put all of its election promises through the ERC?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. In relation to the second part of the question, yes, we are a fiscally responsible government, and we will be putting through all our expenditure. I don't know how it worked under the previous government and whether you just did sign blank cheques that went around ERC or whether the Prime Minister just authorised all the spending. But we have... Well, I am trying to answer the question,
Minister
Senator
Gallagher,
Rennick.
please resume your seat. I'll wait for quiet. Senators on my right. Minister Gallagher.
All of our election commitments and other pressures that are coming our way, of which there are substantial, will be going through the ERC process. I don't think that is a surprise, or it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. In relation to the allegation around uncertainty, I reject the insinuation in the question. Labor is always about investing and strengthening Medicare and health services, and we will do that, and you will see that in the October budget.
Second supplementary, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much. Why is the government creating certain for women escaping family, domestic and sexual violence by not honouring funding commitments? Funding was allocated in the budget for the Zara Foundation for a national expansion of their successful confidential financial counselling support to victims for survivors of FDSV. Why is the government now proposing to review the budget funding provided for this critical support?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. Well, I completely reject the allegation that's implicit in the question, completely and totally. We are going through a process where we are assessing all financial expenditure through our ERC process. Again, that is good government and good governance, and we are being responsible with the nation's finances. If that means going through a process to assess and determine what should go ahead and what shouldn't, then we are doing that. But we will be delivering on our election commitments and on our election policy in full. We will do what we said we would do. The Prime Minister has made that clear.
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Order. On a point of relevance in relation to honouring of election commitments, I mean, if the government is intending to honour its election commitments, why is it reviewing them?
I'm not quite sure that's a point of order, Senator Ruston. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. We're not reviewing the merits of our policy commitments. We are going through an ERC process as we go through for the budget. I mean, that is how responsible governments that want to manage the budget properly conduct themselves. That is what we are doing, and we're committed to our election commitments.
Thank you. Senator Waters.
Yes, thanks very much, President. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Minister Gallagher. With inflation and rate rises compounding existing housing and inequality crises, we need real action to address cost of living pressures. The Parliamentary Budget Office says Mr Morrison's Stage 3 tax cuts will cost $224 billion over 10 years. whereas building 1 million affordable social homes over 20 years would be an investment of $128 billion, with only a $27.3 billion cost to government. Why are you backing the already wealthy rather than fixing the housing crisis, which is far cheaper?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, we're doing both. We will implement our election commitments. One of those was, and we were asked many times around this, around the stage 3 tax cuts, was that they have been legislated by the previous parliament, and we were not going to change that. That was our policy, and we made that decision probably 18 months before the campaign. And as the Prime Minister has said, we will do in government what we said we would do during the campaign and in opposition. On the housing crisis, yes, that needs absolute priority attention from government. This is another one of those areas where 9 years of neglect and refusal to work with states and territories have left us in the position that we are in now, where we will be picking up the mess left by the former government and working constructively with states and territories on how to best deal with the crisis in housing, particularly for those who need housing at the affordable end. We also have our Housing Australia Future Fund, which is one of those key commitments that we will roll out through the budget process to make sure that the Commonwealth is back in the game of housing and housing policy, which those opposite absolutely neglected and didn't treat with the priority that it should have dealt with for 9 years in government. Well, we didn't have a housing minister for a long time. We didn't have a national housing policy. I don't think we ever had a national housing policy. These are the things that need fixing, but so does that working across the states and territories, who have a big stake in the game here, to work with the federal government on improving access to housing and opportunities for housing, and we will do that.
Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. The PBO says fossil fuel subsidies will cost $117 billion over the decade. The PBO also says that cancelling student debt would cost $65 billion. Why are you backing the fossil fuel companies to cook the climate instead of helping young people deal with the cost of living?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. I think these are the PBO costings of the Greens policy commitments that they took to the election, and we are not implementing the Greens policy commitments. So that's the short answer to the question. But
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. I'm waiting for quiet. Senator Birmingham and Minister Watt. Minister Gallagher.
But having said that, President, I don't want to dismiss or trivialise the issue of cost of living on everybody at the moment, including young people, and particularly for those lower income households. There's no doubt that higher inflation and higher than expected inflation, significantly higher than what was in the PFO update before the election, is putting enormous pressure on households, as is the rising interest rates that are increasing because of this inflationary environment we're in. So government does need to focus on this. We are focusing on it. That's why the policies we took to the election are even more important to implement now.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. The PBO says that a corporate super profits tax would raise $286 billion over a decade, and that adding dental and mental health care into Medicare would cost around a third of that at $100 billion. Why are you backing the big corporates instead of people who can't afford to access the health care they need?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, again, those were Greens policy commitments taken to the last election. They didn't form part of Labor's policy agenda, and we are not. We are absolutely about implementing our policy commitments to put downward pressure on the cost of living, to lower the inflation that's ravaging through the community, and put downward pressure where we can on people's cost of living. That is fundamentally top priority for this government. Our policies on childcare, on skills, on the National Reconstruction Fund, on Powering Australia plan are all designed with that in mind, to deal with some of those supply constraints in the economy and to put downward pressure on cost of living for Australians.
Minister Wong.
Thank you. I'd ask that for the questions be placed on notice.
Thank